show. We are live. What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of the Hot Stove Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Nunez, and we're here with my co-hosts,
Mark.
Hello, Zoom world.
I win. Come on.
Come
Oh,
on.
it's Austin.
Yeah, we're here for our Super Bowl breakdown. Don't flaunt that shirt. The Knicks are still going to lose. It doesn't matter. Knicks are by 5. 2 minutes into the first quarter against Miami, or third quarter. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, some housekeeping before we get started. We got a lot to get covered today. We're going to do what is now becoming our weekly in memoriam segment, and then we're going to be doing a couple of trivia questions that relate to some recent sports news. Now, I will say that next week we are going to have our trivia extravaganza. So the four of us will all be getting a bunch of trivia questions to be asking each other, and that'll be the entire show next week. Is kind of a cool down from our NFL coverage. So. Yeah, we'll be doing that next week, even though I do have a couple that we're going to do today. And then we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. And then we're going to talk about the upcoming NFL offseason and some notable players who could be on the move after that. But in the meantime, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Hot Stove Pod. That's Hot Stove Pod on Twitter. And then here on the YouTube side, make sure to smash the subscribe button. Make sure to smash the like button. Make sure to smash that notification button, and make sure to leave a comment if you feel like commenting. Now that I'm licensed again, we can do this without interruption. We can have one singular podcast episode come out at a time, and maybe we can record an After Dark episode soon. Who knows? Mark, it looked like you were about to say something before I started.
You were doing that. I didn't think Josh was going to do the thing. I was scared.
What?
I didn't think you were going to do the pretend to yell thing.
I started talking and Josh wasn't moving. It was.
But I also wrote many a trivia question last night.
Okay, we'll save those for next week.
Yeah, I'm saying for next week.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah. There's I've written 7 questions and there's 23 possible points. So
okay. Well, I have 3 questions today, and there is 17 points available in those 3
beautiful
questions. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I have one question worth 1,000 points.
Wow. Well, hopefully we'll be able to fit that in the entire show next week. But we have to start this show on a bit of a solemn note. I have a myriad of in memoriams to get to. So first of all, I'd like to say rest in peace to legendary Temple coach John Chaney, who passed away from a multitude of cancers last week at the age of 89. Hall of Fame resume, an absolute innovator of the zone defense in basketball. In his 24 seasons as a college basketball coach at Temple, he made either the NCAA tournament or the NIT tournament in 23 of them, 17 total tournament appearances, 5 Elite 8 appearances, led Temple to a number 1 ranking in 1988, and was inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame in 2001, the Basketball Hall of Fame, and the College Basketball Hall of Fame in 2006. So an absolute innovator, a legend in this college basketball game. Rest in peace, John Chaney. Also, rest in peace, Leon Spinks, former heavyweight champion boxer. Him and his brother Michael both won gold at the 1976 Olympics as an amateur. And then Leon Spinks did the impossible in his 8th professional fight in 1978, going into Vegas and beating Muhammad Ali in one of the greatest upsets in professional sports history to gain the heavyweight title. And then they had the rematch September of that year that a reported 90 million people watched. So he lived his life fast. There was a lot of problems with drug use and whatnot after he retired. He was inducted into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame in 2017. Legend of the sport. Rest in peace, Leon Spinks. Also rest in peace, Lou Hill, Texas Rio Grande Valley college basketball coach, who coached his final game this past Saturday before passing away in his sleep going into Sunday unexpectedly at the age of 55. So, it's a tough situation in these parts. More recently, Therese Paylor, a senior NFL analyst for Yahoo Sports, passed away today at the age of 37. He was a former Chiefs writer for the Kansas City Star and a Hall of Fame voter himself. That one is terrifying, admittedly, as a young person who covers sports in some capacity. Chris Mortensen wrote a pretty nice thing on Twitter about it. It's like a lot of us older people know that our time is finite, but like this guy was 37. Yeah.
I saw that one through. I got really scared for a second because I saw Shefty. The first time I saw it, Shefty had retweeted something or quote tweeted at Mortensen and had said like, "Yeah, this guy's a great dude. So sorry to see him." I'm like, "Oh my god, did
You thought Chris Mortensen died?
Yeah, and I was like, "No shot." I was like, "It finally got him," but yeah. Obviously still is tragic, but like, oof.
Yeah. Speaking of ESPN reporters, we'd like to say our condolences go out to the ESPN family and the family and friends of Pedro Gomez, ESPN baseball reporter. I was telling one of my housemates after the Super Bowl, because he died during the Super Bowl. Mark and I were talking about it during the game. I was talking to one of my housemates after the game about it. And I was like, normally what a lot of the people in like a lot of the older people in the sports journalism world or even the sports world pass away, I don't really remember seeing much of their work, just in general. But like Pedro Gomez is someone who I've read a bunch of his writing and I've seen a bunch of his on TV reporting, and it's shocking. So he's a great writer. From all accounts that I've seen, he was a great man as well. So rest in peace to Pedro Gomez. And finally, as of this morning, rest in peace to NFL coach legend Marty Schottenheimer, who passed away at the age of 77. Apparently, he'd been battling Alzheimer's the last few years. One of 7 coaches in NBA history with over 200 career wins. So long career. I believe it was like 25 years as a head coach in the NFL. So long career, Hall of Fame career. I don't know if he's actually in the Hall of Fame, but he should be. So rest in peace to Marty Schottenheimer. If somebody wants to look that up, go for it, because I don't actually know.
I saw a headline. Well, I saw a screenshot of a headline. It was Marty Schottenheimer, known for many playoff losses or something like that, passes away.
Yeah, wilted teams in the playoffs.
Yeah. What the hell is that?
That's mad disrespectful.
Yeah, the guy's a legendary coach, spent forever in the NFL. Like you said, one of 7 coaches with 200 wins. And that's how you pay tribute to him in your headline? Kick rocks.
Total hit job, yeah.
As people would say, as myself would say, go pound sand.
Yeah.
Anywho, to move on from the sad parts to get into the fun parts of this show, we got trivia to get into. One of them, the reason I kept Brian Schottenheimer for last, because one of my first 2 trivia questions deal with that stat that I read out. So, as I mentioned, Brian Schottenheimer is 7th all-time in regular season wins by an NFL head coach with 200 on the dot. He retired with. I want you guys to first question is name the 6 coaches that are ahead of Brian Schottenheimer.
Don Shula.
All right.
In total wins?
Don Shula is number 1 with 328. That's correct.
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick is number 3 with 280.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to get the easy ones out.
Oh, again, Mark.
No, you guys go ahead.
I'm really bad at this.
What'd you say, Josh?
Tom Landry.
Tom Landry is 4th with 250.
Lombardi.
Vince Lombardi is not. I actually have it pulled up here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Vince Lombardi is 45th all time with 96 career wins. Wow.
Trying to think here.
So you've gotten 3 of the 6. Shula, Belichick, and Landry. I'll give you a hint. One of them is active currently.
Tom Coughlin.
Tom Coughlin is not it. Active as a head coach currently.
I was going for a cheesy answer, man.
Trying to think of old dudes.
Well, yeah.
It's not Bruce Arians.
No, it's not Bruce Arians.
No,
It-
because
no.
Arians hasn't been coaching a head
I
coach.
can only
that
think
long.
the best coach in the NFL right now is Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin's also not.
Yeah.
Andy Reid.
Andy
Oh,
Reid.
Andy Reid, duh.
Andy Reid is 6th all time with 221 career
Really?
victories.
The Chiefs, you know. No
Boy,
one was doing
and
that for the Eagles.
And the 20-something years he spent as a head coach in the NFL. But yeah,
Whoever coached those 49ers teams.
no.
No, as in you can't answer like that, or it's
No,
not.
as in he's incorrect.
Okay.
I
The
also-
last two guys, 2nd and 5th, are both instrumental to the formation of the NFL.
Why can't we think of the fuck who's
Mark,
second
who
all time
came
in
up with
wins?
Who came up with the West Coast offense?
Chip Kelly.
No.
No, and it's also not him. And what I mean by that is
Oh.
instrumental to the creation of two of the most iconic franchises.
John Madden?
John Madden
That's
has
surprising.
103 career wins.
That's it?
Yeah, I know.
Guy's a scrub, eh? Screw that. Play. How did he get the video game? Fuck. What are you talking about? Brady no video game.
You have to dig deep into football history. So if you're not much of a football historian like
Dude.
myself, you might not actually.
I just don't know. 200 wins sounds like way too much. It just sounds like a lot of wins, and I'm not.
Some guy who wore a one of those coats. You know the coats that the touchers wear that they
I
open.
can at least say that one of them did. They probably both did. Yeah, they were both around that long ago.
Hmm.
Oh, Bears guy. Hallis.
That's correct. George Halas is 2nd all time with 318 wins.
Whoa. Oh my!
Oh my God, that's a lot of wins.
10 behind Shula for the record.
I mean, I don't know if this is it. Bill Parcells.
Bill Parcells, good guess, but not Bill Parcells.
Lambo.
You would be correct. Curly Lambeau
Oh
is
my
5th
God.
with 226 wins.
I think I speak for myself and Austin here when I say, who?
Curly Lambeau, the guy that Lambeau Field is named after.
Yeah. That's what
Yeah, I mean, Lambo
Never-
Schmambo.
never heard of him.
If he had a better first name, I'd know who he is.
Anyways, well, in continuation with the whole career wins thing, outside of the top 7, outside of the 200 club, there are 9 current coaches in the top 100 all time in career wins.
And
All
the
right, well, Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin is tied for 21st with 145 all time, or with 145 wins.
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy is tied for 27th with 131 wins. So yes,
now I'll go to. I mean, obviously excluding Andy Reid, right?
yes, excluding Andy.
Yeah, we already got it, Andrew.
Now the Bruce Arians guess, I guess.
Bruce Arians is 69th all time with 67 career wins.
Gotcha.
Pete Carroll.
Harbaugh.
Yes and yes. Pete Carroll is tied with Mike Tomlin at 145. And
Mitch Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh is at 31st with 129 career victories.
I'm
How many-
glad. I'm glad I didn't have to say the first name. I would have said Jim. I say the wrong one every single time.
We were about
It
to ask
doesn't
how many
matter.
we have left.
Yeah.
There are 1,
Um,
1, 2, 4. There are 4 left.
wow, I'm really bad at this.
I'm just trying to go by division in my head.
That's
Ron
what I'm
Rivera.
gonna do.
Ron Rivera is correct.
Really?
55th all time with 83 career wins.
Oh, I guess that doesn't mean you don't need a lot, I guess.
I mean, he won 15 in one season, so
Yeah, I mean, he
it's-
was very successful with the Panthers. So
Oh man.
I mean,
the 2 of the remaining 3 are very easy. One of them, I'd be surprised, honestly, if you got. I mean, you'll get it eventually because there's only 32 coaches, but like,
Yeah, I know we're missing obvious ones here.
Yeah, I'm not very good at this.
I mean, there are two that just are screaming right now because of how obvious they are.
I'm so bad at coaches. It's not even Sean Payton.
Sean Payton is
yeah.
correct. He's 23rd with 143.
Wow. I mean, how are we so bad at this? Question mark.
I get one of my tricky ones that I've been thinking. He's just so old. Romeo Crennel.
Romeo Crennel was not a head coach until the year 2020. So,
Wasn't he?
mm-mm.
Oh no, he never coached in Kansas City.
Yeah, it was this year was his first time as a head coach, as the interim coach of the Texans. He's very old though. Became the oldest head coach in NFL history.
Yeah.
So no, he has like 3 career wins.
This is bad. I mean, I'm just imagining somebody out there listening screaming right now.
Yeah, me too.
Again, there's one of them that's very, very, very obvious.
Yeah, I mean that's what you think.
I'm like forgetting head coaches now. I'm like going through like teams in my head, and I'm like, I don't know who their head coach. Like this is
There's
ridiculous.
one AFC guy, one NFC guy.
Oh, John Gruden.
Yes.
Oh,
John
we're
Gruden
idiots.
is the
Oh,
other obvious one.
I know the last one.
John
This-
Gruden has 114 career wins.
Yeah.
He's 37th all time.
GOAT coach Jason Garrett.
That is incorrect. He is on the list, but he's not a current head coach.
Oh, come on. He's basically the coach of that dog team.
I think he's on the list somewhere. I remember seeing it earlier.
I
Give me
think he's
one
like
second.
80 career wins.
I'm looking at it right now. Literally
I'm just
the
looking at a
website.
list.
He was
Yeah, Jason Garrett is 53rd all time with 85 career wins.
He does. I mean, he literally coached a good team for.
Austin,
at
I'll give
least
you
an
half a
88
point
team.
on a technicality.
Come
for that.
on, half a point on a technicality.
Who is the head coach for that?
Now here's the point where you got to think about the fact that there aren't very many coaches who have been tenured for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm sort of.
Is it Mike Zimmer?
Mike Zimmer is correct.
I was
He's
just thinking that.
73rd with 64 career wins.
It took me having to just pull up all the NFL teams to just who
Yeah.
the hell could possibly. I'm trying to think about it.
Yeah,
I just had to look at them all.
Never would have thought of Mike Zimmer.
So those
that
are
was my next guess. Damn.
the 9 of the 10 or 9 of the 11 current head coaches on the top 100 all times in wins. Now I have one more question for you. This is a question that Mark isn't allowed to answer because we
yeah,
talked about this the other day.
This could go forever.
It shouldn't go. It's a basketball question, but it should not go as long as, maybe you'd think. So the last one was in relation to Brian Schottenheimer. This one's in relation to the new man second time around in New York. I was watching the game the other day, the Heat Knicks game on Sunday, and they had the stat pop up on the broadcast. So I wanted to bring it up. I'll give it to you for the top 2 because I want to have this. I think the stat is funny looking. So what 2 players have played the most career games under Tom Thibodeau?
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler is second, and he has 325 career games under Tom Thibodeau.
Joakim Noah.
Joakim Noah is not it. Did you also say Joakim Noah, Austin?
Yes.
Okay, not him.
Just trying to think about that Bulls too.
So I'll give you something here. He's made stops in Chicago, Minnesota,
Derrick
and
Rose.
now New York.
Derrick Rose.
It's not Derrick Rose. So when they showed it on the broadcast, I thought it was going to be Derrick Rose because he's played for him at now all of his stops.
Yeah.
But that is not the case.
Ow. That's brutal.
That was my first guess as well.
There's one player that's been with him pretty much the entirety of his coaching career.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who it is. But I kind of cheated because I looked at I was actually looking at the score of the Knicks game right now, so I saw their roster.
I don't
It's
know.
Taj Gibson, isn't it?
It is Taj Gibson. Since you looked at it, I'll give you the other half a point on a technicality. So Austin's up to 13 points now. But yes, so Taj Gibson is first. He has 477 career games under Tom Thibodeau. Jimmy Butler is second with 325. That was the stat I wanted to say. They're 150 career games apart.
Does anyone? Maybe this was an easier stat. I just saw on the same broadcast tonight. I don't know if you saw it, Nunez. Who is so Derrick Rose obviously was the youngest MVP.
Yeah.
NBA. Who was it before Derrick Rose?
Well, now we have another trivia question to answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you see the answer, Josh?
Yeah, I got the answer.
Okay. Wes Unseld, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Wes Unseld. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just yeah, okay.
The only player to ever win the only player to ever win Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same year.
Oh, okay, then that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
There you go. I got a point. Anyways, so now as we stand in trivia, I do have one more question, but again, we're saving that for our trivia extravaganza next week.
Excellent.
So as it stands right now, I have 5 points. Mark has 11 points. Josh has 10 points. And Austin has 13 points. So it's a tight race at the top. I'm sure with next week, I'll be able to throw myself in the ring there, obviously, because I'm usually the one asking the questions. So I'm going to be behind.
Next week's going to be brutal for me.
How many did I have going into today?
You had like 7 or 8.
I'm only up to 11.
Yeah.
I just got like 7 points, didn't I?
Then maybe you had like 4. I don't know. I've been counting. I know for certain I've been counting properly.
Okay.
Anyways.
All right.
Yeah. So let's move on to recap an obscure football game. I don't know if you watched it. The Super Bowl happened this weekend. The ratings are in, by the way. 98 million were the ratings, which are pretty good.
Yeah, but isn't it one of the lowest all time?
Is it?
It's like it's
Really?
one of the lowest Super Bowls of all time.
Really? Interesting.
Because a lot of people were trying to watch it through the CBS app, and I guess that wasn't working.
It probably wasn't working, and I'm also not 100% sure whether or not that factors into ratings. So, I guess
I don't know.
I think it has something to do with the fact that normal people are moving away from traditional media. Like nobody's reporting how many people watched it on crack streams or Beast TV.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a larger conversation to be had about live television versus streaming. That's not what we're here for. We're here to break down what actually happened. And what happened was a game that was fairly surprising to an extent. To an extent. The Bucs won 31-9. Tom Brady wins the 7th Super Bowl, becomes the second player to win Super Bowls with multiple different teams as a quarterback, becomes the fourth major sport athlete to win 2 titles post the age of 40. All that yada 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 blah blah blah. Right. Well, I'll start with this. Did you guys think the game was boring?
No.
Because I didn't think the game was boring. And I've talked to a lot of people who were like, oh, it was a boring, terrible game, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think that while I was watching it, honestly.
I mean, it was frustrating. I imagine if you were rooting for the Chiefs, it was frustrating, but I don't think it was boring. I think it was just more of you wish it was closer, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I know I heard a couple people that were like, yeah, by the time like the third quarter rolled around, I like put it on in the background while I did other stuff, which is understandable, I guess. But like, I don't know. It was partially boring because the fourth quarter was really boring. But I found that maybe it's because I'm a stupid nerd, right?
Yeah.
Legitimately. Like maybe it's because I'm a dumb football nerd, but I found it pretty riveting for the first 3 quarters, at least. And then fourth quarter hit, nobody scored. It got out of hand. Like it was bad. But what are your guys' initial thoughts about the game before I break down some numbers behind it?
Well, I was gonna say, that I thought it was riveting. I was hanging on the edge of my seat every time they threw to Kelsey anywhere near the end zone, and because someone decided to take Travis Kelsey first touchdown for the Chiefs, which they did not they didn't score a touchdown. And I fell on the floor when Mahomes threw it to Kelsey in the end zone as the last throw of the game. And it went off his hands into the hands of a Bucs defensive back for an interception.
Yeah, Mark was not having a fun time, to be 100% honest with you.
I was still up on the night. It's fine.
Yeah.
That
You won
coin
money on the coin toss. You were good.
Yeah, that coin
Gamblers,
toss
that-
landing on heads was very clutch for me.
Huge.
Yeah.
I appreciate you going against the grain. I saw McAfee put 50,000 down on tails. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Josh, Austin, you guys got any initial thoughts before I kind of get into more specifics about it?
I'll go first because I didn't really get to watch much of the game. I watched.
Oh yeah, because you were working, right?
Yeah, I watched the last 8 minutes of the first half and then all of the second half, and so I kind of got into it in the time where by the time I started watching, I was just waiting for the comeback. I didn't get to see the slot really, and so yeah, it is official though now with this win. Of course, I had said some pretty big words about it. I'm currently checking out my $150 order to Tampa Bay 12 Tom Brady wellness method, including some protein powder, a wellness kit, a couple shirts just to represent the brand. Thank you, Tom. Also, I've just bought my gym membership for the night, and I will start off tomorrow at 7 a.m., just like I'd imagine Tom himself would be. And I'm on the TB12 method now. I'll inform the people weekly about how it's going, and moving on.
Like I said, you might have to do a modified TB12 because you don't have the access to the steroids that Tom Brady does. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. But you're
Yes.
lying to yourself if you don't think that all high level professional athletes are on some sort of illegal substance.
No, yeah.
That's beside the point. Anti-doping is a ruse and it's ineffective and stupid. Anyways, that's more of an MMA conversation than a football conversation, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Austin, you got anything? I can't remember whether or not you said it.
I will say for the people who said it was boring, watching the Bucs offense was a snooze fest. I will say. They just hand the ball off and it was 5 yards, 6 yards, getting hit behind the line, but nobody can tackle for the Chiefs. So it was 5 yards, 6 yards, chunk plays. Every time they ran play action, Godwin or Mike Evans was just wide open over the middle of the field. It was like really just watching a team. It was like watching a team who was coached perfectly play a team who was just running around trying to make plays. And they couldn't do anything. It was just a hope that there was a big mistake coming from Tampa Bay, and it just didn't come.
Yeah, and I can't even act like I'm like Nostradamus or anything because all of the things that I said on the preview were exactly what happened during the game. It's partially good analysis, not only on my part because I didn't make hardly any of the points. I cribbed them from other people. I don't spend my day looking at all 22 footage. But it's also partially due to some factors in the game, right? It's partially due to the fact that what happened was entirely predictable, honestly. So that's where we'll get into the numbers behind it. Patrick Mahomes is still a wizard. As you may have seen from the Inside the NFL footage, where Chris Godwin couldn't stop calling him a wizard during the game. And it's fair because he is. He was a wizard, not for many reasons, but not including the fact that somehow he was able to not die behind the junior varsity offensive line that they had going in front of them, which I predicted would be a problem and was an even worse problem than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes was pressured on 29 of his 56 dropbacks, which is the most in Super Bowl history at a 51% clip, compared to Brady, who was pressured on 4 of 30 dropbacks, a 13% clip, which is the lowest that Tom Brady's ever been pressured in one of his 10 Super Bowl starts. So this game, to me, might have been the biggest gap in terms of trench play in a Super Bowl that I've ever seen in my life. I knew the Tampa Bay defensive line was really good, specifically because of this guy, who has now, for me, taken the throne from Akeem Hicks as the most underrated defensive player in football. Vita Vea is the ultimate homewrecker that's not named Aaron Donald, and I will die by that sentiment. If you watch this man, now if you told me, I remember being high about him when he came out of the draft. I can't remember if it was the draft that Austin and I were watching together in 2017 or if it was a different year. But you told me that this 350-pound man would break his ankle in like 7 different places and then come back 12 weeks later and be in the backfield on literally every play, making like life a living hell for 60 minutes of the Super Bowl, I would have told you were crazy. But he's so goddamn good. He's so good. Like if you go back and watch the footage, yes, JPP played really well. And yes, Devin White played incredibly. Devin White had the game of a career in the Super Bowl. But like Vita Vea, to me, Vita Vea is an example of the reason why defensive tackles matter more than people think they are or think they do. And we can get into this when it comes to Aaron Donald rightfully winning DPOY. But, hey, Steelers fans don't want to hear that. Am I right? I guess the guy has the last name Watt, therefore he's the GOAT, right?
Didn't he lead Aaron Donald in every stat outside of forced fumbles?
Correct. That's true. But it's also
there is a legitimate case.
It's also missing the point.
Yeah, I'm just saying there is a legitimate case to be had.
One is a linebacker, the other one's an interior lineman. Those stats don't really line up. Basically, that's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah,
I'm with Mark. I think there's more of an argument than. I mean, it's like I don't know.
TJ Watt very good.
Yeah. I know it's fun to point fun at the Steelers fans, but
I wasn't saying TJ Watt isn't good.
Well, I know you weren't.
We don't need to live in absolutes, right? Like just because I think Aaron Donald should have won DPOY doesn't mean I don't think TJ Watt's very, 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 very good. He is, but Aaron Donald is the best defensive player, probably the best overall football player. He doesn't have a single weakness.
Yeah.
I think his pectoral muscle. Which one was it?
I guess that one.
Point to that.
Right. So no, I don't. I do think Aaron Donald should have rightfully won Defensive Player of the Year, but that's beside the point. But back to this guy, the Hawaiian man, the man that made this game an absolute hell for Pat Mahomes. And I see the people on the internet making the argument, "Ooh, he should have stepped up in the pocket." You know why he couldn't have stepped up in the pocket? Because this guy was down his throat every down, just like he was to Aaron Rodgers last week, which I talked about in our preview, right? Like I was like, the reason that Aaron Rodgers couldn't step up in the pocket like he normally does is because what the Bucs do so well with their defensive line is crush it from the middle. You have guys coming from the outside, which don't necessarily get there as quickly. But if you collapse the pocket from the inside, you force the quarterback to do what Pat Mahomes does, which is fade backwards. Correct. Now, to the argument that some people are making of, oh, he held the ball too long, blah, 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 blah. Here's a stat for you. I got bogged down in numbers and whatnot. Pat Mahomes' 29 dropbacks where he was pressured in under 2.5 seconds on 24 of them. 43 of his total dropbacks, 43% of his total dropbacks, he was pressured within 2.5 seconds. So there's no argument to be made about holding on for the ball too long. If you think holding on to the ball longer than 2.5 seconds is holding on to the ball too long, then we're obviously not talking about the same sport here, because that is just very clear to me that it's not. And I don't want to pin it all on the Chiefs' offensive line, right? Like I made a point during the game that this is one of those games where I wish that you could give MVP to a coach, because I would have 1,000% given it to Todd Bowles for coaching, calling one of the best defensive games that I've seen in years. It was an absolute masterclass in defense. And the fun stat that Josh pointed out to me was the fact that Mahomes ran for almost 500 yards behind the line of scrimmage over the course of the game.
Oh, you didn't hear that, Mark?
No.
Yeah.
He ran a marathon.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, it's a product of a lot of things. It's a product of Mahomes had a fairly severe toe injury that he's having surgery for tomorrow to fix. It's a product of the Bucs defense is just really, really, really good. It's a product of the Chiefs had one of their day one linemen playing. It's a product of a lot of things. It's a product of the drops that the Chiefs receivers had in and out, upside and down the entire game. And I think there's still things to be commended about Patrick Mahomes. I think I mentioned during the game to Mark, like, we've become so desensitized to the insanity of what Pat Mahomes can do with his arms that, like, aside from those 2 back-to-back incompletions that were both dropped by receivers, where one of them he was legitimately parallel to the ground, and it still hit his receiver in the face mask and he dropped it in the end zone. We see so many things of, like, he'll make an insane throw at an angle that nobody else can make, and we're just like, no, it was a throw. We kind of just brush it off. So that's why I found this game particularly interesting. I think there was a lot more behind it than what people might think.
Did any of you see that video of the Bucs rushed 4, just straight up rushed 4, and they showed like a slow-mo replay? Mahomes catches the snap and takes a 2-step drop, and 3 defensive linemen, I think it was Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, and not Pierre Paul, a different one, were already past their linemen. We're already had beaten them, and we're on the other side. It was like they flipped roles, and he had taken a 2-step drop. I was like, this is insane.
It goes back to the stat that I said. 43% of his dropbacks, he was pressured in 2.5 seconds or less. Like,
unbelievable.
You can't play football like that.
I will say some of the drops that people were getting on the receivers for, I think were a lot harder catches than they were given credit for. Now, it's the Super Bowl. You're Tyreek Hill. You're Travis Kelce. Make those plays. This is the time you step up. You make some of those plays. You score 2 touchdowns. Maybe your team has the confidence. Maybe your defense comes out with a little more confidence, and you can make more plays and stay in that game. So I do think someone's got to step up and make a play that's not named Pat Mahomes or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, actually.
Yeah,
honestly,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire played really well.
Tremendous. If there's anybody to take away, I mean, he played amazing. He fought for every extra yard that he could possibly get. But at some point, I mean, when your front 4 is getting pressure so easily, you can just stop the run with no trouble at all. So, I don't know.
And I think this kind of begs the question of where do both of these teams go this offseason? I think both of them are pretty interesting cases because to me, the Chiefs need one thing in particular, and they need it pretty badly. It's linebackers that can play football, whether it's being able to cover over the middle of the field or being able to just tackle Leonard Fournette, which is not that hard of a task. They need somebody who's good as a linebacker. That's something they don't have at the moment. Now, I don't know as if the cap will work itself out, but then again, the salary cap is imaginary and can be flexible however you want it to be. Again, look at the Saints, who are $90 million over the cap going into the offseason. So imagine the Chiefs being able to sign someone like Demario Davis, who is a free agent this offseason. I think that would be a really good move. Get someone in the middle that can actually, do things. So you're not just relying on Chris Jones, who has never attempted to stop the run, and Tyrann Mathieu, who is, again, elite, but like, I think we've seen it time and time again with many different players. A safety can't carry a defense, right? Like it's pretty difficult to do in that situation. Now with Tampa Bay, I think their free agency situation is more interesting. I don't know about their defensive free agents. I know Shaq Barrett is a free agent because he got tagged this last year. I assume that they'll be signing him to an extension. But offensively, a good handful of their skill position players are free agents. You have Gronk, who I assume, again, will come back. It's either he retires or he plays for the Bucs again next year. There's no situation in which, he doesn't play. But OJ Howard is a free agent, so he could be gone. Both Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin are free agents this offseason, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with their wide receiver core. And Leonard Fournette is a free agent. I don't assume he'll stick around, but I do think he's played well enough the last month and a half to get a job elsewhere. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they have a bunch of spots offensively and defensively. I saw Mike Evans already said that he'd be willing to take a pay cut just to keep guys around. So he wants this thing, run it back. I can't imagine Antonio Brown gets a big contract. And then defensively, though, JPP, and you already mentioned guys like who's the other defensive lineman?
Shaq Barrett.
Barrett. Yeah, and there's some other tools there that need some touch.
Vontae David, I think, is a free agent as well.
Yeah, so they got a lot of holes to fill, and like I said, I imagine most of them resign. I don't think there's much information to the contrary. Like I think
Yeah.
the one that's pretty clear that he's probably not going to be there next year is Leonard Fournette. But then again, it could have surprised me. Who knows, right? The rest of the guys I would anticipate stay in Tampa Bay. The other big question is Chris Godwin, which kind of leads us into our second big topic for the day. We're going to kind of go through some of the big free agents or players that could be on the move. I have a couple players on my list who aren't free agents per se, but players that could be on the move this offseason, where we think we should go or where we think they should go. What do you think could happen? I have a couple of teams that we should talk about as well. Yes, Josh?
Can I make a quick one? Mark, what are you eating there? Sorry, I got you mid-bite.
Oh, cheesy bread. You already know what it is.
And we got some garlic bread twist as well.
Nice.
Beautiful. Excellent.
You don't have the cinnamon bread twist with the sauce? The sauce
No,
that I can't say on air?
I wasn't feeling dessert tonight, so I'm just going all in on
It's a lot of bread there, man.
and then, I only eat carbs. So
Mark is actually on the rare carbs only diet.
yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't get a chance to eat before coming on here. I've been busy since like 2:00.
I didn't want to derail with that, but I just had to.
Yeah, I don't enjoy eating while we're on the air, but it's the only option I had.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it does.
I love looking at you. Just put
Okay.
it right in your mouth.
Okay.
Anyways,
Yeah.
let's talk about the players, right? And we'll talk about the quarterback position first. I purposely left 3 players off this list. I purposely left Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, and Dak Prescott off of this list for differing reasons for each of them. I think Dak Prescott I left off because for all intents and purposes, I think we all believe that he's going to stay in Dallas this upcoming season, whether it's a contract or they franchise tag him a second time. I have a firm belief that he's staying there, so there's not really much to talk about. The other two, with Wentz and Watson, is that basically their situations are either so dependent on what the player wants with Watson. Like it's all going to come down to what Deshaun Watson decides ultimately, whether he gets traded or not, because of that no trade clause, that like it's impossible to speculate because no other outside forces can really impact that. Or you have Carson Wentz, where there's been about 30 differing reports over the last 4 days to the point where it's just so confusing. And there's so many leads that there's no leads. So we're just going to wait to talk about Carson Wentz if and when he gets traded from the Eagles instead of trying to speculate here, because we've heard so many things over the past week that are either true or not true, but nobody really knows, but they're supposed to all be true, but they are conflicting with one another and they don't really make much sense. So we're just going to skip that and not talk about that. And we'll talk about that when it happens. But in terms of quarterbacks who might be on the move this offseason, we'll start with Jameis Winston, actually, who is, to me, one of the more perplexing situations in football right now, because we still don't know whether or not Drew Brees is retiring. I heard like some rumor that he was coming back last week, but again, it was about as substantiated as any of the Carson Wentz rumors from the last week. So I have legitimately no clue. So let's take this conversation, assuming Drew Brees retires. Do you think that Jameis Winston stays with New Orleans and probably backs up Taysom Hill because Sean Payton is stubborn? Or do you think that, or if he doesn't stay in New Orleans, we'll ask this. If Jameis Winston doesn't stay in New Orleans, what team do you think should sign Jameis to be their starter this upcoming year?
The only problem with Jameis on this list to me is that, and I haven't seen the rest of the list, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But the only problem with Jameis that I can see is that he didn't have many opportunities this year to make a case for himself to be a starter.
He had 1 half and then 1 play in the playoffs. That's what
exactly. So, and obviously, getting the backup deal he got last year, not many teams were looking at him, I don't think, to be their starter the year before. And after a year of backing up Taysom Hill to the backup of Drew Brees, I don't know how this could have helped his his resume much. So if he doesn't stay in New Orleans, I don't see him getting a starting gig elsewhere.
So here's why I think that he might. I don't agree with this assumption, but there's definitely this offseason tracking to be a lot of teams who are looking to change quarterback. Schefter, Adam Schefter made the claim that if you set the over under on 18 teams that change their starting quarterback, he would take the over, which I think is a little ridiculous. But the sentiment being that we've already had two with Los Angeles and Detroit. You still have Chicago. You still have Minnesota might be looking for a quarterback, candidly. Carolina, Washington, San Francisco. You have the Patriots. You have the Jets. You have the Colts. You have the Steelers might still be looking. You have the Steelers might be looking for something post Roethlisberger, even though they've signed Dwayne Haskins. You have the Raiders. So you have the Broncos. That's 11 teams right there that may or may not be in or out on changing quarterbacks this year. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. So I think personally, I would like to see if Jameis were to go and get a starting job somewhere. Personally, for me, I think his fit is in Indianapolis. Get him a line. Get him sign another receiver in free agency. Have him have a defense that's good. These are things that we haven't seen Jameis Winston with. There's a good offensive line, a good defense. We've seen him with great weapons, really great weapons, and we've seen that he can throw for 5,000 yards. You know, so like I would love to see Jameis in a situation like Indianapolis, especially because they're looking for a quarterback coming soon. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I guess Indy has to be the best quarterback home this offseason, right? Minus the lack of talent, I guess.
With the exception, the best quarterback home for a team that currently doesn't have a starter. I would argue that San Francisco is probably my preferred choice in terms of overall place. But as it stands right now, they have a starting quarterback on the books.
Yeah.
The only quarterback that's currently under contract for the Colts is Jacob Eason right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like when I looked at it earlier, I fit Jameis into teams that wanted to win now, wanted to compete now, and wanted to take that shot in the dark. I thought that was like a Colts or a Redskins for me. I do think, football team.
That's 10 push-up.
The Washington football team was kind of my better fit for me because no offense to Jameis Winston here, but I kind of just think he's P. Rivers 2.0. And I don't know if the Colts really want to try with a shoddy, inconsistent quarterback again. I almost think they might prefer a game manager type guy who might slow the pace down and just rely on the run and do some defense. While I think Washington is kind of just annoyed with how their offense scored like 17 points a game and their defense was so good. So they might try to go for a guy with better talent who might be able to light up the scoreboard, score quickly, put points on the board. So I could see Jameis fitting in on the football team a little bit better than the Colts. But I don't know. I like both teams just because they're both ready to win now, and there's obvious talent for Jameis, and he's not going to have him ride a backup role for the next 5 years. He's 30, right? I mean,
yeah, I think the Jets front office thinks they are in talks with Deshaun Watson because they're that incompetent, and they accidentally signed Jameis instead, and he becomes a starter.
Wow.
No, my actual thought was also Washington. I think Jameis fits really well in Washington. So
you guys have Washington. I had Washington that is pegged at a team that might have been interested in Matt Stafford originally before he got traded to the Rams. And the football team is someone I do have on my list, just generally what they should do at the quarterback position. I like the idea of Jameis. Part of me wants to say Cam Newton, give him one last shot back with Ron Rivera. I don't know if Ron Rivera will actually want to do that, but I think I think New England's New England Steel players were so bad that we still don't quite know if Cam Newton is good. I mean, with throwing like 350 pass attempts this past season, on the flip side, he ran for 500 something yards and 12 touchdowns. Like if you can get that number to like 450, which is still below league average, I think there's still potential there, right? Like, and I don't think anybody would argue that Washington has a better roster than New England does at this current juncture, just generally all around, with the exception of maybe like their secondary, I guess. So I would kind of like to see Cam go to Washington, maybe.
I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. Hey, bring Jameis to Washington. That Cowboys defense can force a hell of a lot of turnovers this year.
They cannot force a turnover on anyone. So who says
the last half of this year?
The main reason I was thinking Washington for Jameis is Terry McLaurin. I think that would be a great pairing. Get a legit guy like that. I'm very high on McLaurin. I don't know how you guys feel about him.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, but I think you get a throwing quarterback like Jameis paired up with McLaurin. I think that could be real dangerous and add a lot to that Washington offense. So that was the main reason I was thinking of it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Woke up this morning feeling dangerous. So we'll move on to the next player here. Assuming the Jets move on, where do you guys think Sam Darnold should be going to?
USC.
Rude.
I think the quite obvious answer was teams that, might have a starter, might not, but they want to see what Darnold's about, which was for me the Steelers in Tampa Bay, which I know Tom Brady likely playing another season, but for Tampa Bay it was because Tom Brady's done after next year. I don't care what anyone says. He's done after next year, and who's your quarterback after next year? And if Tom Brady can teach habits, workflow, things like that into Darnold, and Darnold can understand an offense, play with weapons like that in practice, and kind of understand the game at a higher level than Adam Gase was teaching him, maybe you can awake something out in him. The Steelers was an obvious answer because if he has any talent at all, he's ready to come in now because Ben Roethlisberger's old and probably going to retire anytime now.
And he's also not very good at this point. He's old, fat. He's ready to beat another case for sexual assault that we won't talk about. He's bad at football.
I think Tampa, if you buy into the fact that Tampa or that Tom really only has one more year, then yes, I think Tampa makes sense. I don't. You obviously just trying to follow the TB12 method. I understand why you wouldn't get it. The point is, I think you're right in that Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense. But if Cam sticks around in New England, I could see Belichick taking on a project like Sam Darnold, kind of. Just a young guy with a lot of talent that I think he can mold. I'll
push back on that for a second because I don't think that Bill would do both. I think Bill would either stick in purgatory with Cam for another year, which I don't see happening in any way, shape, or form, or just sign Darnold and go for it. Now, my personal preferred landing spot, and maybe it's because I'm part Sam Darnold truther and part. So there are basically like two quarterbacks in the NFL who I'm an irrational truther for. Derek Carr is one of them, and Sam Darnold is the other one. Because I think that a literal bucket of marbles could be a better NFL head coach than Adam Gase. So we still don't know whether or not Sam Darnold is any good. I think he's talented, but you'll have to see whether or not he's good as an NFL quarterback. Now, where I want to see him go is the place where quarterbacks thrive, the place where one of the guys I think is the worst in the NFL somehow made it to a Super Bowl. Get Sam Darnold to the 49ers. Let's see what Kyle Shanahan can do with Sam Darnold. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the answer. I feel like I've made it clear, and I think the Niners have made it clear by benching him a few times for injury reasons, for guys like Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, that they also think that Jimmy Garoppolo is not the answer. And Jimmy's contract isn't as bad as it once seemed a couple of years ago. It's actually fairly easy to get out of at this point. So I would love to see what Sam Darnold can do in a Kyle Shanahan offense with that defense, with those speedy ass weapons that they have. Ooh, I would love it. I would love it. That's like my dream situation for quarterback to team this offseason is Sam Darnold to the Niners.
For me, I didn't even really think of Darnold being an option for New England, but it makes a lot of sense. Like that he seems like a Belichick guy. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. I think Darnold is plenty talented. I'm not a Sam Darnold truther. I don't know how good he's going to be. I've never been that high on him. And I'm not saying I want this to happen because I don't, but I'm afraid it's going to happen. He's screaming Marcus Mariota to me. Sam Darnold is screaming Marcus Mariota, where it's like, yeah, there's going to be flashes and you're going to think, God, this guy's really good. And then it just never really works. And so I don't want that to happen. I never want that to happen, especially because seeing that happen to my boy Mariota was very difficult for me. But I don't see it. I really don't.
I think it's funny you say that because I think Marcus Mariota might have a better shot at being a starting quarterback this year than Sam Darnold.
I agree.
It's-
Because of the one half of football he played against the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does too, which is like why
Personally-
I'm scared.
Personally,
Because he
I think
shouldn't.
that's insane.
I
But
also think that's insane.
Okay.
Coaches keep signing him, dude. I mean, Mariota
he's
isn't
been
very
signed,
good.
like twice.
Once.
Rappaport had said that teams have been calling Oakland or Vegas now, I get asking about Marcus Mariota.
Mhm.
I believe it. I've also heard that there's interest. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like,
I
that's like
doubt it's
Mariota
a
is like the hottest commodity since
Oh, no.
cables
yeah.
were invented. Like, you know,
He's the Teddy Bridgewater signing of last year, though, right? Like he's way cheaper, probably a little safer in my mind.
Yeah,
I mean, I
It's
think Teddy
similar.
Bridgewater had a lot more on him the previous year that showed like he could
True.
actually be good and win
Yes.
games.
He had 4 more games, obviously, but
Yeah.
I,
speaking of Teddy Bridgewater, I know he's under contract this upcoming season.
3
yeah?
years, 60 million. So yeah, he's under for another 2 years.
Because one of the things I wrote on the sheet was what should Carolina do? I don't know. Oh,
I just think they're trying to not waste McCaffrey's years, and they want to go get a quarterback and just try and finagle themselves into a playoff with a mediocre defense.
well, I say that, but I wonder if what they do is they stick with Teddy through at least this year and just keep adding pieces around it. So when they get to the point in a year or 2 years where they get that quarterback, they just have a good team to plug him into.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's what they're doing. I assume that's what they're doing.
could be. Yeah, I mean, if they don't trade him this year, that seems like the likely thing.
And is it just me, or does Carolina seem like such a destination if the Bears don't bring Trubisky back? Like I could just see Trubisky being Mariota's backup, or not Mariota, Bridgewater's backup next year for some reason. I don't know.
Go back to
Absolutely.
UNC?
I actually thought about that like last week.
Yeah.
It just
I don't know
seems
why.
like it fits. He would look good in the uniform. Like
Would.
he just seems like a Carolina Panther to me.
Oh, that was just something that I
I
thought.
wrote down that I wanted Carolina to go out today and trade for Derek Carr, who for some reason Oakland is wishy-washy about. I think
Don't
that
understand
team,
it.
I think that team would be an 11-win team with Derek Carr at the helm next year.
Derek Carr Hive rise up. I love it.
I hope that
I'll
they
forever
don't.
love Derek Carr. I was on the Derek
From
Carr
a-
to Chicago train last year, and then they traded for Nick Foles. So
From a guy who just gave up DJ Moore in a dynasty league, I hope Teddy Bridgewater sticks around for a couple years.
Yeah, he did
Uh,
favorites.
I personally like Teddy. I don't think it's like I think they can stick with him for the next couple of years.
He's
I
fine.
really do.
he's not to play a pun on his last name, but he's like the quintessential bridge quarterback. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't think they're quite Super Bowl there ready, so I don't think they
Exactly.
should be really too worried about having a quarterback right now that's going to
Yeah.
win in the Super Bowl.
that's why I was saying like I think that they just like maybe stick around with him for another year while they just add more pieces.
Yeah, certainly.
and whatnot because they hit on the draft picks this past year.
With 7 defensive players.
Yeah. So it seems like they got a good front office who knows what they're doing. So it wouldn't be a bad course of action. So we'll move to the skill position players here. We'll talk about the one running back I have written down because it's an absolute crapshoot to project running back workloads and where they'll end up and blah, 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 blah. But I do want to talk about Aaron Jones and what happens if he leaves Green Bay because he is an unrestricted free agent. They did draft A.J. Dillon last year. And as you know, running backs are fairly disposable. So I was interested. I have a theory that I think would, I was part of free Aaron Jones hive a couple years ago when they just weren't giving him carries. You know what would really free Aaron Jones? Getting Aaron Jones to the Atlanta Falcons. Imagine Aaron Jones in that offense playing for Arthur Smith, who has just given Derrick Henry 400 carries each of the last 2 seasons. I'm not saying he'd get that workload because I think that would be a little ridiculous. But imagine Aaron Jones with like plus 225 carries. I don't know his exact. I'll look up his exact numbers, but I don't think he's reached that number either of the last 2 seasons.
I mean,
just start talking. I'm looking something.
I haven't thought about the Falcons as a destination option for really anyone because who would want to play in Atlanta right now? But I can see it. I mean, I was more thinking these guys can make some extra space. Team with some running needs.
I think that team clearly doesn't need it. They were one of the best rushing teams in the league down the stretch.
Well,
okay, so I'd like to say
I'm out on Roadshow.
I'd like to say that Aaron Jones had 236 carries in 2019 at 4.6 yards per carry, and then 201 in 2020 in 14 games, by the way, at 5.5 yards per carry. So
Pretty good.
Aaron Jones is consistently one of the most efficient running backs in football, and it's not like it's a perfect situation. Atlanta still doesn't really have an offensive line or a defense that's capable of anything, but I think that, I don't know, it's pretty interesting. I'd like to see what happens, especially with the new regime that's not going to throw it 650 times a season. And I wish that were an exaggeration, but Dirk Cutter has legitimately averaged 600 plus pass attempts in like every year that he's called plays in the NFL. It's actually an insane number. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually wrote down for Aaron Jones, does he get Devonta Freeman or does he get
Gurley.
or not Melvin Gordon? Melvin Gordon, is that his name?
I don't know who you're talking about, so I don't know whether or not it's his name.
Are you talking about Melvin Gordon?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying, does he get Melvin Gordon or Devonta Freeman? Does everyone go, I'm not paying that price for you, you can rot in the free agents? Or does he just get a $15 million deal on a mediocre team like the Falcons for really no reason?
I think he's young enough and good enough as to where he gets Melvin Gordon, but also I think it's more justified than Melvin Gordon. Like Melvin Gordon was like 28 going into this past season. Aaron Jones is 25.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Todd Gurley is still under contract in Atlanta.
I would be surprised if he's on that team next year, especially considering he got benched in the last month of the season. Hate to see it. I really, 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 really do. But as running backs typically do, their stars shine bright. They don't shine very long. Todd Gurley is not a good running back anymore. And it really sucks. It really does. Arthritis is a bitch, and it's terrible that it's happening to someone who's like 28 years old. But yeah.
The only other team I speculated that I don't think they will is the Buffalo Bills.
The Bills are an interesting one.
Watching how poor their running game was all season.
Ooh, I would like to see Aaron Jones.
I would like that a lot.
I spent time talking with some Bills fans about like what they need, and we agreed on a run game, but we didn't agree on if it was the lack of ability by running backs or just a bad run blocking team.
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. The line, I think, needs to do better in Buffalo before you look at, because Josh Allen even runs for his legs back there. I mean, it works, but,
Austin, are you okay?
I wasn't even moving. I don't know what that sound was.
What happened?
All right.
Austin was just making a bunch of weird noise.
Nice.
So I have a list of receivers here, and I guess it's not really too great to like just pin a specific receiver to a specific location. Like there's certain teams that you assume will be looking at receiver. And I guess so. The list I have, we'll start with that. The list I have is Kenny Galladay, most likely Allen Robinson, and then I wrote Cy next to it. Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Will Fuller, and T.Y. Hilton are all free agents this offseason. I don't know if you want to play like connect the dots to where you think they'll go or where you think they should go or where you would like to see them or something like that. I'll say the one that jumps out the most to me is get T.Y. Hilton like a minimum, like a medium level contract with a place like Baltimore. I think that would be fascinating. Now,
Yeah,
I don't know
that could work.
I don't know if they'll actually do it because, you know, Baltimore's needed a receiver for a few years now and they've just done nothing about it other than draft bad guys who can run fast. And T.Y. Hilton is a good guy who can run fast. So they're kind of, you know, averse to that. But I would like to see a guy like T.Y. Hilton in Baltimore. That was one of my first thoughts. I mentioned earlier that I think Chris Godwin probably sticks around in Tampa. And I think push comes to shove. I think Juju probably sticks around in Pittsburgh. I think I'd be kind of as much as many of the Juju's going places rumors I've heard, I'd still be kind of surprised, I guess.
Yeah, me
I don't know. It's not based on anything. Obviously, it's not based on any of my own sources. I don't report anything, so I don't know what's going on. So it's just stupid hunch feelings, honestly. But I guess I would like to see Juju stay in Pittsburgh with a guy who can throw the ball past 6 yards down the field. Maybe they'll actually. That's another place that Aaron Jones could go. Also, is Pittsburgh. You know, they can't run the football. They could use a guy who doesn't run at like 2.8 yards a clip. So maybe Aaron Jones to Pittsburgh would be a thing. I don't know. We'll see.
It's okay. The Eagles are going to sign Aaron Jones to a ridiculous contract. He's going to average 3 yards a carry for 2 years, and then we're going to get rid of him. So it doesn't matter. That's how the Eagles operate. You know what quarterback I was thinking would fit really well with Kenny Galladay?
Matt Stafford.
That's true. Matt Stafford is one of them.
I really. What's LA's cap space like? Do they have
Tight?
None.
I don't know. With losing Goff, it probably opens up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it was one of the lowest. I remember because they would sign like Sue and Marcus Peters, those veterans they brought in for like $1.5 million, and they'd be
yeah.
I don't assume they have much cap space. Let's put it that
way. But I mean, like you said, the Saints are 90 million over the cap, so the cap space is imaginary, or the cap is imaginary. So I don't know. I think that could work.
I think it's better to look at it through the lens of like what teams could be looking for wide receivers. So like, assuming Allen Robinson doesn't re-sign with Chicago, I think they'll be looking for receivers. And I just had this gut feeling that like they'll sign Corey Davis and be done with it, which I think Corey Davis is pretty good, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
You know what I would like to see? You know what I would really like to see for Kenny Galladay specifically? Is Kenny or either him or Will Fuller, one of the two. I'd like to see one of those two sign with Jacksonville.
That could be fun.
I actually wrote down Kenny Galladay to Jacksonville.
That could be a lot of fun.
Add one of those to DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault with Trevor Lawrence incoming. That's a pass right there.
They should look to do that. I liked your idea of T.Y. Hilton to one of those contenders in the league, either a Baltimore or Tennessee. Tennessee looks to be like they could really use someone opposite A.J. Brown. Not that Corey Davis was, lacking this year, but whatever. The Saints jump off to me as someone who I know Emmanuel Sanders did fine this year, but they could use another talent with Michael Thomas maybe if they found someone to actually throw him the ball. And, I don't know. I like what Mark was saying with that. I instantly thought the first thing I thought when they traded Stafford was like, oh, this is perfect. If they have the cap space, I think Galladay makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Even with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, I think Matt Stafford is good, and he will make all three of those guys 800.
That would be stupid. With Kenny Galladay, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean it's nuts.
That'd be unguardable.
The offensive guru in me, who doesn't care about defense at all, loves that.
Same.
And they
Defense
still
is
have a
fine.
really good defense.
Yeah, like your
Yeah,
defense
but-
is fine. You have Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. Like you don't need to talk about defense.
Mhm.
Let's just go get the best offense in the goddamn league and dominate.
Yeah, I think the Rams are already a Super Bowl contender now with Stafford. I think you put Galladay there, I think they become one of the favorites.
Yeah. Another
I-
team we keep talking about, the Bills, opposite Diggs. I've heard that they want to get rid of John Brown.
I don't
So
know why.
He can become he's eligible to be a cap casualty this year. So
yeah,
it wouldn't necessarily be surprising if they release him.
Oh, okay.
I'd heard that, and he's $9 million, so they get rid of him and use that towards probably not like a Galladay type guy, but like one of the lower level availabilities, like
Like a-
Corey Davis.
Yeah, like
Right.
a Corey Davis. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that working out.
What about
Uh,
Will Fuller? He's the one that sticks out the most to me.
I don't know. I think he re-signs with Houston if Deshaun Watson's playing there next year.
I wrote down he follows Watson wherever Watson goes.
That's
That was sort of what I
Kind
was
of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Also, Miami just won. So go Heat.
Tough.
Dude, Texas in a 1 point. God, Texas sucks, Austin. The hell.
Yeah, they do. Well, they were up 20 like 10 minutes ago. Don't worry.
Georgetown's down 12 and a half. Who would have thought?
But
I mean, Georgetown's not good. So
I
No.
had some Allen Robinson thought where I was sitting there thinking I think he's really good for young quarterbacks, right? He gets open, they can get the ball out early, they can get into rhythms, and then I go, what about Jet? Oh wait, he's not going back to Jacksonville. I was instantly thinking he'd be a great fit for Trevor Lawrence. When Trevor Lawrence comes in, he has this deep threat in Chark, and then he has Robinson over the middle and all over the place, really. But then I thought maybe Miami, they have a bunch of guys who run straight and jump and catch the ball. They don't need Kenny Galladay. They need a guy who gets open over and over and over again. I think Allen Robinson or even, Chris Godwin kind of fit that mold better. And, call me crazy, but my first thought for Chris Godwin was the Green Bay Packers. And I don't know why, but I just think the Packers are going to make a move for someone like Godwin or someone like T.Y. Hilton in the
or Will Fuller
season.
with the trade rumors that we heard earlier in the
Even,
year.
yeah, and then a bunch
Yeah.
of trade rumors with Will Fuller. I think that really would be a good fit. And I think Rodgers has pretty much had it up to here with, throwing touchdowns to guys who just can't catch the ball 40 yards downfield.
At Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
It is kind of annoying to him. I don't think anybody anticipates Tanyan to come back with a 12 touchdown season again. I think they do need a legitimate number 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if they sign one of these kind of major guys. Maybe not major, maybe not Galladay type guys, but maybe Will Fuller, T.Y. Hilton type guys.
Yeah. And Will Fuller, I don't know what his price is going to be, honestly, because we still haven't seen him be able to play a full season without performance enhancing substances. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
interesting.
Who knows? Also, do you have anybody else of note on your list? I know you wrote a separate list. So,
No, not really. I had some guys that I don't really have. I'm not really too familiar with. I went off some generic list, but I wasn't too familiar with them, like who they were, what they were about, and how good they were really. So
yeah, I was thinking about the ever so prevalent tight end market, where that doesn't exist ever. Like Hunter Henry's a free agent. If he doesn't sign with the Chargers, maybe he could go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville tight end action.
I
Like
said
that.
Washington was my original. I want
Washington.
Washington to either trade up and get Kyle Pitts or get Hunter Henry. That was my favorite thing for them.
And then also Jonnu Smith, if he doesn't re-sign with the Titans, they would have a tight end opening. So maybe Hunter Henry to the Titans. I don't know. Tight end doesn't really matter.
I'm not gonna lie. Next to Jonnu Smith, I wrote question mark, who cares?
Yeah.
No disrespect, he's a good tight end, but he's a second tier tight end in the NFL. Nobody cares. If you're not
At
Travis Kelce or
absolute
George
best, the
Kittle,
second tier tight end in the NFL.
like
Probably third or fourth, considering
yeah.
everything about it. And then I have one defensive player written down. It's just Richard Sherman, because he said that he's been in the news the last couple of days. He said his plan is to play 2 more years and then retire.
So
I think it's-
Tampa or Kansas City or someone who's going to win a title.
Those
Yeah,
drivers
I
are
wonder. Yeah, I
fun.
wonder what it is because immediately Chicago jumped to my mind. Like that's like a kind of move that I would want to see the Bears make. Like if they're actually committed to being good this season, it's get a quarterback and sign Richard Sherman. Like those are the two things they should be doing.
Yeah.
Honestly, but I don't know if they're committed to being good. I guess we'll see.
I had
But
this
yeah,
fantasy where he became a Seahawk, went back to the Seahawks to finish out his career.
Earl Thomas got signed there.
Well, Earl Thomas would never go back.
yeah, Earl Thomas hates the Seahawks. So
I was actually sort of
Run
thinking
it
that
back.
for Sherman too. I wouldn't hate it. See him back in the Pacific Northwest.
Is he a Niner?
That's not the Pacific Northwest.
that is not the Pacific Northwest.
I mean,
The
it's
Pacific
it's
Northwest
it's
is
Central
just Washington
California.
State.
it's close.
No, it's not.
It's
It's,
damn
Central
close.
What are
California.
you talking
It's
about?
northern. I'd consider it northern Cal.
You'd
Yeah,
consider
it is
San
Northern
Francisco
California, but it's
Pacific Northwest.
Somewhat.
that's Washington, Oregon, and that's it.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
I
Don't
don't-
forget
I-
Montana. Psych, everybody forgets Montana.
What?
The worthless state.
This
Yeah,
troll is saying.
It one time took me 45 minutes to come up with the name of Montana.
Mark, do you think that if I gave you a map, you could name where every state is?
Absolutely not.
No?
I
I could
did
probably
that-
do most of them.
We did that in high school. And first of all, I could only think of 44 of the states. I
Really?
forgot 6 states.
Really?
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
And out of those 44, I got like 9 of them right.
that's pathetic.
That is
The-
pathetic.
I am so bad at geography. Like people, I say I'm bad at geography, and they're like, "Oh, you're not that bad." Seriously, one time it was like someone just handed me a piece of paper, and
Mark,
they were like, "Write down all 50 states."
I mean, I'm
And
trying
it
to
took me
think about
45 minutes.
But
To
there's
think of
6
Montana.
gimmies. New York,
Alaska,
Florida. I
Hawaii.
would say New York, Florida, Texas, California, Alaska, Hawaii. Those are 6 gimmies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also got
And Pennsylvania is a gimme.
I mean, in
for a
every
New
state
Yorker.
next to us.
Yeah, so
Right.
I
Michigan.
did get some of New England wrong.
You just told me we're Washington and Oregon.
I'm not gonna lie. Where I would really get mixed up is the whole Vermont, Delaware, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay.
think I got all of those wrong.
Middle of the country is where I would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the whole Kansas, Oklahoma,
Iowa.
Iowa. I don't know where.
Where
Iowa
the
is.
fuck is Iowa?
No
I don't know where
idea.
Iowa. I don't know where Nebraska is. I don't know which one of
Iowa's the
top
Johnu
states
Smith
Nebraska
of free
is.
agency. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
What did you say?
Said Iowa's the Johnu Smith. You know.
Of state.
Some states.
The third, fourth tier state.
I think
Is
I
Iowa
could-
technically Midwestern, or is it more so?
Yeah,
like
it's
Middle
Midwest.
America kind of deal.
Yes, it's Midwest. Yeah.
It's Midwest.
I think Iowa's actually touching Indiana or Illinois. I think it's the first one.
That's why I was asking. Yeah.
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 I could do better if you put a map of Europe in front of me. and
What the
said,
hell?
Fill out all the countries. I guarantee you I
Commie
could do better at
bastard.
that.
I could probably get like maybe 3 European countries. To be
Yeah,
honest with you.
it's just
I could get Spain and Portugal. I get Italy. I get the UK.
mhm.
They haven't left the European Union yet, so they're technically still there. That's about it. To be honest.
Germany?
Yeah,
No.
Germany, France, Austria.
It's all just a mush for me. I don't know which one is
Yeah,
where.
it's-
I know Germany's directly to the east of France. That's all I know.
Yep.
I just don't know where. I don't know where it is. Does Russia count?
Yeah.
Okay, then I could do that.
I'm looking at it right now. I think I do all right.
Yeah.
Would
Mark, could you tell me where Liechtenstein is?
Liechtenstein, no, but
Could you tell me where Luxembourg is?
Yes.
yeah, maybe.
It's the tiny little thing in between.
Yeah.
It's right of Italy.
Yeah, I know it's really small, so that's what I would like be like, oh, I think that's Luxembourg.
All right, this is dumb, and this is something we should be doing off air. So we'll continue this when we're done recording. In the meantime, this has been our Super Bowl
That's
recap
Slovenia.
and our free agency preview in the NFL. Make sure to tune back next week. We'll be here for our trivia extravaganza. We all know how much we love our trivia. We're going to give you a whole show of it next week. So for my co-hosts, I'm Zach Nunez. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to hit the notification button and make sure to leave a comment if you feel like commenting on the video. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at HotStovePod. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We love you, and we will see you back next week.